This is A Silent War Within, the podcast dedicated to confronting the unseen mental health battles carried by our first responder and healthcare heroes. This show is about real stories, real struggles, and real ways to survive the storm and come out stronger on the other side. For too long, stigma has kept you silent, but this is your space to bravely break that silence, share vital insights, and build a community where your well-being truly comes first, because your service deserves unwavering support.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to A Silent War Within. Today, we've got obviously our co-host Kim and a very special guest as usual, ShadeTree's cardiology, Greg Carr. Nice to meet you. Good to have you with us.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Kim, we've got good stuff going on. We've got our Facebook running now. We've got our TikTok. Just on our TikTok now, we've got many views. I'm very surprised by that. Happy, but equally surprised. This large dome of mine that you see in the camera shot has got a lot of wild ideas running around. So we've got some exciting things planned for you guys, and we're excited to see where we go with this. This is our episode with ShadeTree's Cardiology. So let's jump into it. Greg, tell us about yourself. Tell us about how you gained this massive TikTok following. How many followers have you got now?
I think we're just over 250,000. I actually looked at it yesterday for the first time in a while because one of the guys I ran into out here told me that it was at 254,000. I was like, no way, So yeah, we're just over 250,000.
So was that on purpose? I mean, did you start to make content to gain followers, or were you more just kind of accidental?
I had no intention of any of this. I tell people it was accidental, but I think the better word for it is organic. So to make and I don't know how short I need to make a long story, but I had gotten rid of all my social media in the past because it was so toxic. It's a stained glass window. It's a dirty window to the world, right? So it makes you think that people are worse than they are and that they're concerned with things that they're not, versus if you lean over your fence and talk to your neighbor, you'll figure out, hey, the world's not so bad. We all kind of want the same things and, yada, yada. So I had, and I don't know if it's still this way, but there was a time when you had to have TikTok to open a TikTok, and people were always sending me funny stuff. And I mean, when you do what we do for a living, like who couldn't use a laugh? So right. I had an account. I never posted anything. Just so I could open those videos. And I taught this ACLS class over the weekend. We did, you guys do the AHA trios where, over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you'll do ACLS PALS and CPR and sort of rocket the research.
Yeah, we have before.
So I taught one of those with some guys, and we were kind of talking about, we had got a couple beers after, and we were talking about how we talk when, you're 3 Miller High Lifes deep versus how you speak as an instructor, and, doing this funny thing. And so I made this video where I was like using my phone to record voice notes, and it was patient. How did it go? Patient presents with ventricular dysrhythmias, yada, 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 managed according to ACLS guidelines. And then when I played it back, it was the squiggly lines on that Damon box looked like an epileptic holding an Etch-a-Sketch. It was funny, because of the conversation we had. So I made that video and sent it to 5 of my friends. And then I was doing mobile integrated healthcare at the time, which is like hospital at home. And so I went in, and it was like a Vanc and a magnesium infusion. I was there for a couple hours, like say 4. And when I came out, of course, first thing I do is check my messages to see if I made my friends laugh, because I had texted it to them, and the video was at 30,000 views. And it was, oh God, what have I done? And so I went home and talked to my wife about it. And I was like, I don't want this. I don't like this. I went to Iraq. I worked with the Iraqi army. There's probably people who don't like me. Like, I'm not a secret squirrel kind of guy, but I don't necessarily need to put myself out there. And she said, honey, you teach, you love to teach it and make a joke and have fun. And if it's bad, you can always delete it whenever you want. And I said, okay, fine. And it just exploded from there. But it was not intentional, and it wasn't to gain anything, but it was ShadeTree's Cardiology existed since 2016, well before TikTok was even a thing. And that came from, I was dead broke when I went to medic school. The GI Bill would not cover a trade school in 2009. And so I'm going back to all my old stuff. I'm welding them, hanging shingles. I'm working on a farm, anything I can do to make the cash to pay the tuition to this course, because my family's riding on it. None of my military education had carried over. And so I had to pay the extra money for these like online mega code simulators and stuff because I was terrified I was going to fail cardiology because I mean half of all students do. And once I had a few letters behind my name and I had enough experience to know what I was talking about, I said, well, there's no rule that says I can't teach for free. And so I started putting videos on YouTube, diving into EKGs and doing mega code simulators and rhythm practice where, you know, the rhythm comes up and then the answer flashes up in 2 or 3 seconds. I started doing that around 2016 and it never gained a huge amount of traction, but it had say 10,000 followers. It was enough. I think I got a check for $100 from Google about every 6 months. And I would always take my wife out to eat with that, you know, because, hey, free money. But
Yeah, right.
I would get these messages like, hey, I just passed cardiology and you were a part of that. Thank you. And like, that was all I ever wanted out of it. I never thought it would get big. You know what I mean?
So does the cardiology thing for you, was that just a passion that you had in school? Where did the actual cardiology part come from? Because I love
Yeah.
cardiology and I love your videos.
Oh,
So
I do too. Yeah. So what had happened was when I first went into the military, I got a great piece of advice, and it was when you see a weakness, attack it, even in yourself. And I was like, all right, cool.
yeah,
So I knew coming out of the military, you know, there's a lot of Army medics that they want to sound cool. Well, we learned everything. I'm practically a brain surgeon. No, you're not, right? All your patients are 23 years old and they're healthy. And you can make all kinds of mistakes and they have good veins because we all run 5 miles a day and do push-ups and pull-ups and sit-ups and all that. So I didn't know hardly anything that a paramedic needs to know. And everybody told me, you know, the scuttlebutt, make sure you're studying cardiology. And this course I went to intentionally because it was hard. I called a friend of mine. He's a doctor now. He's an ER doctor in North Carolina. But at the time, he was the only one of us who was a civilian medic on the truck as well as an Army medic when we were in Iraq. And I said, hey, if there was anybody in the world, if you could pick anybody in the world to turn you into a paramedic, who would it be? And he said, it's this guy named Billy Shelton. I said, all right, where do I find him? You know, I don't care. I'll drive, but I want the best guy. He said it won't be easy. So I sought him out. So I knew he was known for having a really hard cardiology program. He had this program called EKG Boot Camp. And so I knew that 1, I didn't know any of that. 2, I was going to have to work harder than a normal course. And 3, if I worked hard, I would come out better for the effort. And so it started out out of fear because I knew I didn't know it. But as I worked on it more and more, it just absolutely turned into a labor of love for this complex and beautiful machine that moves with almost symphonic texture and motion and chemistry and exchange of voltage. And once it had its hooks in me, I'd never been able to get enough of it. And that was like 13 years ago. And I still to this day, I'll read something about cardiology today at some point just because, yeah, it's great.
yeah. Don't you talk dirty to me about these cardiology terms.
Yeah, talk nerdy to me. Talk
That's right.
nerdy to me, baby.
That's right.
I have socks that say that actually. Talk nerd to
Do
me.
you really?
Yes.
Love it. I love it. You know, that's one thing I wish they would normalize more in our field is you can be the captain of the wrestling team and be the nerdy guy at the same time, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson does that. There's nothing wrong with that, you know. And people will meet me, and I'm a little bit. If you meet me in real life, a little bit jockey, you know. I like to pump iron, and I'm 6'2", and I'm like 275. But I'm the nerdiest guy you'll ever meet, and I am not sorry.
That leaf blower video you posted, I was like, this dude's ripped. This dude is crazy ripped.
My youngest brother was calling me Terry Crews because I was this big, silly, muscle guy runner. You should have seen me back in the day. That's what all the old guys say.
Absolutely. Same here. And I'm not ripped. So yeah, you should have seen me back in the day when I was. So tell us, so you mentioned it, you started in the military, right? And that's kind of where the EMT Army medic thing started. How did you progress into, obviously you came out, you wanted to go to the best paramedic program. So where did this love for EMS come from? Because it's really clear that you really enjoy this whole EMS thing.
That was another one that was organic. So my battalion surgeon, when I was in the Army, he was like a history teacher at a high school, decided he wanted to be a doctor, and they wouldn't accept him. So he went to paramedic school. His name's Dr. John Dubose, still practices in North Carolina. Great guy, great doctor. So he said, well, you can become a paramedic. You'll get some skills and some experience, and you could get into, that's one avenue you could take to get into medical school. And I talked to my wife about it while I was still in Iraq on the last deployment. And I said, hey, it's a good job with benefits. It can't be that hard. If other people have done it, I can do it too, you know, because there's no substitute for elbow grease, right? Like you can always study hard enough to learn it. You can always work hard enough to accomplish it. I wasn't cocky or arrogant about it. I just knew that I don't need talent. I brought work ethic, like I'll work until I get it. I'll figure it out. So I just figured it was just a job that would hold me over until I did undergrad, finished my MCAT, and got accepted to med school. And that was all it was ever supposed to be. 100%. It kept me in the game. It let me take care of people for a living because that's all I've ever wanted to do. And then, man, when I got here, it was, what is this? This is crazy. This is whole community, this is a whole lifestyle. It was a world with new words and acronyms. And there was so much I didn't know as an Army medic that I'd never had to learn because you can't have those diseases in the military. So now I've learned so many of these diseases, and I'm doing advanced life support procedures really often, and I'm working pediatrics and all this. And it was drinking from a fire hose, but I could appreciate the magnitude of what was happening because I wasn't brand new. And I just fell in love with it, man. I mean, there's no insurance, there's no billing. I don't care what it costs. If you need it, you get it. I've got 3 of them in the restock box, even though we're probably only supposed to have 2. Operative IQ says 2, but it's one of the last bastions of medicine that has been untouched by the corporate part of this in a lot of ways, right? There's no bean counting during a call. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what you can pay. I don't care if you've got insurance, if you don't know how to say that word. What do you need? If I've got it, it's yours. Best facility, best destination, as long as you can survive. Need a chopper, call a chopper. To me, that's what medicine was always supposed to be. And I feel like Americans already pay enough taxes that we pay enough to have healthcare. We just need to kind of shuffle the pot.
Sure.
And so I mean, enough so that I've been accepted to medical school, and as a combination of one, the first time I got accepted to med school, my daughter would have been 16 when I finished residency, 16 or 17. I didn't want to do that to her. And then 2, it's like I told my wife, as long as my body will hold up, like I can do what I do until I die, I'm happy. Yeah. I wake up and they pay me to make sick people better for a living. That's like hitting the lottery every day. And the lights are on, the water's hot, the fridge is full. We're not suffering. I don't have a Ferrari, but then again, I never wanted one. So it's good. So yeah. I love this field. I love this job.
So one of the things I love about what you said, and this kind of topic is really pulled straight from our text conversation, because what we were talking about throughout the week was kind of podcast gold, if you want the truth about it. You and I talked about being authentic and not getting caught up in that TikTok star or guru mindset. Yeah. So how have you done that? Because I feel like with 254,000 followers, normal folks would maybe have that response of like, I'm a pro now. I've made it. And you are a pro at cardiology, but.
Well, I appreciate that. I beg to differ, so. But I tell you, man, it's not real to me. I don't know how to be anybody but me. I don't have any experience being anybody else. And, there for a minute, I did let it kind of eat me up in terms of the imposter syndrome. Like literally, I would make a mistake or do something silly, and I would literally think to myself, boy, if those people who think you're so smart could see you do that, and that's we all got that inner voice. He's kind of hateful sometimes. Mine is, anyhow.
Me too.
And, but it never meant anything to me from that angle because I didn't want fame. I tell people I'm a celebrity with a little c, it never meant anything. When I see 250,000 people, it means potentially, that's 250,000 people I've either made laugh or helped treat a patient or done something good, not any sort of accomplishment that I think I can ride high on or anything that I think makes me important. I literally just had this conversation with a conference who was, they were booking me to come down and teach, and they were wanting to know what I wanted. And it was like, whatever your standard honorarium is or whatever. And I know what some of the other guys charge, the gurus. And they came out and asked me because I'd done this conference before. So I knew this person, kind of personally. And they said, why don't you ask for X? And I said, I just can't take myself that seriously. I feel like it's bad for you, It's bad for your mental health. It's bad for what you'll do to other people. So I'm still just a guy from Eastern North Carolina. I just have the privilege, and it is a privilege, of helping people and making them laugh at scale. And I feel like as long as I respect it like that, then I might be blessed enough not to lose it and get to keep doing it. But I also feel like, it's that classic tale, like the fairy tales you learn when you're a kid. You let things go to your head, and well, pride cometh before the fall.
That's right.
So just
That's right.
I don't take myself too seriously.
And I think that mentality is probably why you have 254,000 followers, is because people are genuinely searching for authenticity. Authenticity is where it's at. How do you think that helps you connect with everybody? Is it just that idea of that this guy's real, this guy's authentic? And Sophie was the same way when we interviewed her. She's very real, very kind. What you see is what you get kind of thing. And I feel the same way with you. So how do you think that, I almost said listeners, but how do you think your viewers connect with you so well?
Well, I think that's it. And I got a chance to meet Sophie in New Orleans, and you want to talk about dynamite in a small package. I mean, she is on it, young, smart.
Yep.
She's going places. I'm going to be telling people, hey, I know her. I think that's what it is. So when I decided to keep it, because I had to make a decision either to scrap this account or keep it if I was going to put myself out there. I've had this thing I've done for a long time, since the first time I got promoted when the job wasn't what I thought it was, right? I'll sit down and I'll say, why do you want this? What do what pot of gold do you think is at the end of this rainbow, so to speak? And so I was like, why do you want to teach this stuff? And so it was, okay, there's potential for income for my family, not a lot, but some. Potential to impact this business. Okay, that's a big deal. And when I say business, I don't mean dollars and cents. I mean how we take care of people.
Sure, right.
And so there was a potential impact there to be doing the right thing and putting good information out and being a leader someone might aspire to be, right? So in a sense, being an example someone might want to follow. And when you sit down and think of it like that, you understand that you got to be yourself, for better or for worse. And I remember, I'm not an Elvis fan, but I do remember him talking to a reporter, and the reporter asked him, how much of this is you and how much of this is your image? And he said, it's impossible for a man to live up to an image. And so I right off the bat, I was like, I don't want to create any kind of image. And I'm not stabbing at anybody when I say what I'm about to say, but I think we are all sufficiently tired of the self-represented guru. And because here's the thing about a guru, there can only be one or two of them, right? There can only be one in the group. And so what you do there is, when you present yourself as a guru, you give an unattainable goal to the people that are watching you. They can follow you, they can learn from you, but they can't be you, right? And that's hot garbage. So what I wanted to present, which up until that time I'd not seen it done online, was somebody who was just a normal guy who was really good at their job. And not to sound arrogant, but I am really good at my job. I practice, I train, I read, I go through great efforts. I spend money out of my pocket for education to make sure that I'm really good at my job because I want to take care of my patients properly. So I felt like that was what I wanted to put out there, right? Look, I'm a regular dude. I'm somebody's dad. I make bad decisions, and I get to work late sometimes, and I forget to renew my license and all that stuff like everybody else. But I am good at this. And you know what? You can do that too, because we're all just regular people, even the guru that wants you to think they're not. And I think that's why people like it, because it's realistic, it's attainable. I go through great pains to try to break things down to their most bare components, to sort of rip the mask off of this complicated information. I mean, we can use the $10 words. I like them. I like Scrabble, but not in a classroom, because in a classroom, I'm trying to bring you up to my level. Paramedic is one of those great things. When you graduate a student, you turn them into a colleague. I mean, that's a big deal,
Yeah.
So don't give them 18 months of, look how smart I am. Don't do that. Bring them up here. And I hadn't seen that done online. So I thought, hey, what could it hurt? And I think that's what brought people to it,
Yeah. And I love that. That's why I'm here.
I kind of feel the same way. I've been in respiratory therapy, whether it be adults, that's where I started, and then on to pediatrics, where I've spent the bulk of my time. And I think I've realized that once you've spent so much time in this field, you notice your colleagues starting to look to you and come to answers from you, and they're starting to look up to you because you have all of that experience. and
Absolutely.
and then you remember when you first started that you had other colleagues and people that mentored you that you
Hmm.
used to look up to, and you're like, man, that person made a huge impact on my trajectory and my life and my career. And so I try to aspire to be a good example of a respiratory therapist and a colleague and a patient advocate for anybody that I precept in my colleagues, somebody just to look up to as a positive role model and an advocate for my career and our patients.
If you, well, you lead from the front, right? So you have to. It's kind of like raising kids. Kids don't do what you say; they do what you do. So
That's right.
you want to be a copyable example, and it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. Personally, I haven't written any good books on leadership, but I think that's the only way to be a leader. You can't stand on that. I would never ask you to do anything I wouldn't do. If we're all gonna, eat the sandwich, the proverbial sandwich, I'll take the first bite. Right. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be a patient advocate. I'm gonna do these things that you're saying. And I'm gonna do them overtly and in front of anyone who's following me or precepting or whatever, and live that life. I'm going to do it every day, and it
And
gives people something to aspire to.
And the absolute best reward for everything you guys just said is when somebody comes to you and says what you said at the beginning of the podcast, that I'm a paramedic today because of you, or you influenced me, or you did this, or you did that.
I also have ADHD, but I was not diagnosed. Well, I was diagnosed informally by my coworkers,
Nice.
like, like it in the last 3 years. I'm 40 also.
Okay. I was diagnosed formally when I was a kid, and my mom and dad were like, ain't nothing wrong with my boy. We'll beat it out of him. Well, unfortunately, it
Here we
didn't work
are.
that way. It's actually a superpower. You just have to learn how to use it. Through my whole career, all the guys I've met in like special operations or MARSOC or even a few Delta guys, they all have ADD, ADHD, something like that. But with that, they have a phenomenal ability to absorb and retain information at a rate that other human beings cannot match, as long as you can dial it in and focus. So, when I meet, especially the young guys coming into our field, because this field attracts them, and good, because when everything's on fire, that's the one person who their brain finally says, okay, I'll turn all the neurons on. And, that's the only time I get 100% of my brain is when everything's on fire. And that's the one
Me
person
too.
who can solve this Rubik's Cube of a patient without panicking or raising their voice. And I tell them, it's because we're in the South, so this analogy works. It's like a bucking bronco. It's wild, it's untamed, and it's powerful. You will have to break it. But once you do, you can harness it and you can use it. But understand, it's still a wild horse. Once in a while, it's going to do its own thing and it's going to throw you off. That's the way the game is played, And I think when they approach it like that, I think they begin to accept that there are ways to mitigate and manage it, be that with medicine or techniques or whatever. A lot of times I ride the wave with mine. I'll produce like a ton of content and release it later, but like you just have to work in rhythm with it, because I can't turn it on, right? I can't turn on the hyper focus. A patient can pull me into it, but I just have to ride the wave, and learning how to harness it. It absolutely is a superpower.
I kind of like that too, and I think Kevin can vouch for that because we've worked together for 10 years.
Have you?
When I get into a phase of hyperfocus, he's like, "What the hell are you doing now?" Because
Yeah. Yeah.
I ended up reorganizing all of our supply closet, and then
Nice.
ended up outside reorganizing another closet. And he was like, "I feel like every day you're doing something." I'm like, "I'm in my zone right now," because then I'm gonna hit a wall and I'm not gonna do shit for
Yeah.
about 2 weeks.
Well, that's what
But
happened when I went through cardiology. Was there was so much riding on it. This was all the career I had. None of my medical education had carried over. The state of North Carolina wasn't even honoring my national registry EMT. So I couldn't work on an ambulance. I was just working odd jobs. And I had no experience outside of what I had growing up, like building or construction. So everything was riding on, you must pass this paramedic course. So when that pressure kicked in, and combined with the ADHD over that, month and a half or 2 months of cardiology or whatever it was, um, I tell people I drank from a fire hose and I didn't spill a drop. I absorbed all of it, because everything, our entire future was riding on me passing this paramedic course. Not to brag, but like to show people what they're capable of if they harness their own superpower. I worked 3 jobs and one kind of odd job. So I worked 4 jobs, remodeled a house, and still graduated at the top of that course. There is no substitute for elbow grease. It is unlimited and available without prescription. I was also 25 years old, and I think that ought to count. It's like,
Yeah, I'm sure that
accounts
accounts
for
for some of
something.
it. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like naps these days.
Yeah.
Naps
oh
are
God,
good.
And what you said about how ADHD works is exactly why I always loved working with Kim, because when all the shit hit the fan, I knew that Kim was going to turn on. And when she turned on, everybody was either going to come with her or you got
Yeah.
left behind. It didn't matter. She was going to keep going regardless. If you didn't keep up, too bad. She's continuing forward.
Have you ever had a
It is
partner
nice getting
that
that zone.
your ADD or ADHD that is synced with them? Like there's this analogy I use, the SINGAR's radios in the Army. They jump channels, right? And they might jump, I don't know, like 100,000 channels a second. None of this is classified. But you have this thing called a fill where both radios are jumping the channels at the same time and they're in sync, right? And you can receive a radio communication because even though you're jumping 100,000 different random channels, you're jumping together. So the communication comes through. And so in all of my career, I've had one partner where our ADHD was in sync like that. And we could have those conversations where, you know how you'll jump, it looks like 4 steps into the future in a conversation when you're really
When you
fixated.
go squirrel, I call
Yeah,
it
and
going squirrel.
people don't know how you got there. Well, she could jump with me. She was there. She was in my head and I was in hers. She's a very private person. I won't even say her first name, but I'll say E because she'll know what that means. And that one partner, that one time, the amount of ground we could cover in a shift in conversation, training, hip pocket training, learning was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And I would love to do, if I had a bunch of money, I'd dump some kind of research into personality typing us and figuring out like which ADHD we are and trying to put us together, because I really feel like the strides we could make in this field and the advancement when you had, it's like putting twin turbos on a motor at that point, like I just feel like we could do so much more if we could really commit a little bit more to taming this disease and figure out what it is, as opposed to trying to medicate it away and make everyone normal. We don't all need to be normal.
No,
You know.
normal's boring.
Well, ADHD people have a hard time fitting into our society, but I believe it would absolutely collapse without them. Who else is gonna ride a horse to the top of a mountain in Afghanistan after 9/11? And who else can you just drop in with nothing and they just figure it out? And who else can pull up to, a baby at 3:00 in the morning on their 17th call of a 24 and instantly do math and stuff in their head? Like there's a use for this. I don't know what it was back in the day, but this is a footprint, a genetic footprint that was there for something. And there is a place for us, but I think a lot of us don't end up where we need to be. But if you're in emergency services, you found it. Like you found the right place, I think,
Yeah.
I also think we have a special level of compassion too, that I don't think others that aren't neurodivergent has. I think that we feel and think a lot deeper
I
than
agree.
most that I've noticed
Absolutely.
in my time. And the level of compassion and understanding and empathy that we can attain compared to people who aren't neurodivergent, I think that's part of the genuineness, because we seek that in our conversations. Like the authenticity, integrity seems to be a big thing.
Oh yeah.
Being true to ourselves, and we don't know how to not be true to ourselves because it just
Oh,
feels
yeah.
awkward. So whether we're not very popular sometimes,
Yeah,
but
that's
we're
true.
damn real. We're real.
Yeah,
And people either love us or hate us, I think.
that's true. I've met more people that like online Greg than like real world Greg. You know what I mean? Because yeah, they're the same, but it's different when you got to deal with me for 14 hours. You know what I mean? Like you can scroll online, but when we're here, I'm talking about everything and trying to figure this and that out, and reading and solving puzzles, and people either love us or hate us. It's a great way to put it. It's the truth.
It definitely is. So are you medicated or unmedicated?
When I was really young, just learning from friends in school that spoke other languages, and at 12, I was reading Stephen King and stuff. I had a very curious mind and I wanted to understand everything. So once I figured out when you read this book, or they got this thing called the encyclopedia that has like almost everything you want to know. And once I figured out I could solve the world's mysteries, in my own brain. By learning, I just became someone who did a lot of things, but I couldn't focus on the mundane day-to-day life stuff. And so my grades were atrocious, and they sent me and I was diagnosed. My mom, doesn't really remember everything about all of that. I think it was kind of a whirlwind. I don't have any problem with my parents and the way that they handle it. The way I explain it to people is they were children raising children. They had a family really young. I think my mom was 20 when she had me. I'm the oldest. She had 3 kids. She got 2 guys working full time, and it was trendy to give kids Ritalin and stuff back then. So I can understand people wanting to sort of not, what would you say, not want to medicate their kids and all that. So by the time I really had an understanding of it, like in a medical context, psychological context, that was during my career. And then at that point it was, well, what's the point now? Because I'm a tall, barrel-chested mountain man, so CHF is already going to be on my bucket list whether I want it to or not. I had to start taking beta blockers when I was like 26, and so to try to utilize like the amphetamine-based drugs or something to harness it, I don't know that that's worth it in the long run for me, because I've already kind of figured out how to use it, or become patient enough to put up with it on the days that it just won't cooperate. So I'm unmedicated because it just took too long. And then just like as a matter of physicality, understanding about the heart, the things that I do, and knowing the dose it would take, it would upend my entire life. And honestly, like if I'm allowed to be a little bit, what's the word, scared for no reason, I don't know if I'd still be me. And there's a lot of times I don't like me, but most of the time I like me. And I don't know if I want to change that person or how I go about things. I don't know that I want to. So
I would advise no.
yeah.
Don't medicate. And and I'll tell you why. So about 2 years ago is when my coworkers concluded for me that I had ADHD. And I was like, well, this makes a lot of sense. There's no wonder why, like, we're in staff meetings, I'm spinning in circles in the chair, and then I get up and wander around. It's true.
That's a
It's
true
true.
story.
Oh,
That's
me
a true
too. Me
story.
too. Yeah.
I feel like a toddler. I feel like a grown toddler. The next thing you know, like I'm falling out of my chair, and they're like, "You're such a shit show. You're a great provider, but you're just a shit show. Like you can't sit still." And so, out of my own curiosity, I was like, I mean, obviously, I learned to manage it, and I could hyper focus and be a productive individual. It didn't affect my grades because I'm like, hold my beer, watch me do this, because I love education. I love people picking my brain, and I love to learn anything about anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Once you
just
learn how to
intriguing to
harness it.
me.
I had
Yeah.
a training officer that we used to do Con Ed once a quarter, where you physically came into the classroom. I know, right? Crazy idea. And he would give me something to fidget with. His name is Dave. His first name's Dave. I won't throw him out there. He's a director now. I mean, he's doing great. He's always been one to, kick butt and take names. But he would give me like an ET tube or something to fidget with when he saw me show up to Con Ed, so I could mess with it while he was teaching. He understood that was part of how my brain worked. But if he'd give me a gadget or something to mess with, that I wouldn't lean my chair back and do all those things.
Sometimes I'll do both.
Yeah, well, yeah,
To put my pen way over here because I'm a pen clicker, and I was like, that's going to
yeah.
pick up in the mic. I need to get rid of it. And Kevin's
Take
going
it
to kill me if I
apart.
start doing that.
Yeah, take it
But
apart, put it back together.
my construction, since I can't do anything else. But I did. I've been on Adderall for 2 years, and I can be very productive. Like pre-medication, I used to start multiple projects at once, but I would
Mm-hmm.
also finish them. I could
Mm-hmm.
I just had this way where I could sort it out and complete them. My whole house, I could reorganize it and be turned upside down. It would look like a dumpster fire, but at the end of it, it would be perfect. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. It would give everybody else anxiety. But out of curiosity, I was like, well, what if I take medicine? Could I be even more productive? And I can. Now I can sit and
Mm-hmm.
do a whole chart without getting up. But I have noticed the change in my personality. It's really tempered that down. And
Yeah.
I would think pre-Adderall, I raw dogged it a lot, and I had no filter, and Kevin
Yeah.
can vouch for that. I'm like, best known, everybody's like, "You're best known for saying shit that everybody else wants to say."
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Saying
that
what
was
we're all
me.
thinking.
Yeah, I love the reaction.
And then I choose to put her on a podcast in front of who knows how many people.
And that's genuine, and that's what the
Yeah.
world needs right now. We are surrounded by fake plastic smiles that have been ran through 5 filters.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
world needs some grainy realism to get back to baseline. We are so far off base, as a world, as a community, and definitely as a country, off of what is realistic in life.
Yeah.
as far as like happiness day in, day out. I'm not getting into politics and all that crazy stuff. I'm just talking
Right.
about what you can expect out of this life, how often out of the day you can expect to be happy and so on. And we are so far off the mark because of everybody posting every meal on social media and every vacation that was bought with a credit card that they
Yeah.
spend 2 years paying off and all this
Yeah.
stuff, that we have this really odd expectation of ourselves and society and our role in it. And people need that realism to get them back to baseline, to get them back home. And I think it's coming, because you can only keep up a farce so long, man. And the whole social media thing's been like this so long. The artificial standards of living and beauty and money and people are so far off base of what the real world is, that they're insecure and they're worried that they're never going to be XYZ, when really that was something we never needed to obtain anyway, and I know all that's kind of vague. I don't want to get too far into the weeds on it. I think it's mental torture in a lot of ways.
That's actually a really perfect introduction, because I've got a story for you. It's not going to be
Let's hear it.
it's not going to be a long story, but so social media come really close to ruining me at one time.
Wow.
And not in the fact of I did anything or had some traumatic event, but I was suffering from a lot of PTSD. I run some really bad calls there for a while. That was just, you know how it gets. We go through a season where it just seems like it's one after another after another.
Yeah.
And I started playing the comparison game. And I think this is what a lot of people do. We start looking at our peers on Facebook, social media, TikTok, and we see that this image of this perfection, like they're not bothered by any of this. Even the people that ran some of these calls with me, I would look at their Facebook and go, they're not even bothered. And I'm sitting over here and I can't make it through the day. Like I feel like anytime I go to sleep, I'm seeing it was a kid that drowned. I've shared that story multiple times,
Oh,
and and I'll hinge on that story for probably the rest of my career. But I can still today close my eyes, and if I'm thinking about that, I can see that kid's face.
yeah.
And it's something that therapy has helped with. But one of the videos that you did that stuck out to me is one where you're kind of standing in the corner of what looks like an ER. Obviously, it's a background, but what looks kind of like an ER, and basically the tagline is that PTSD doesn't always look like you think it's going to look.
Well, I remember that one. Yeah, that
So
was a popular one. Yeah.
so there was that disconnect for me, because I was comparing myself to Facebook and I was comparing myself to all these plastic people, as we've referred to. But also part of it was I didn't know how to deal with PTSD. I couldn't even say that I had PTSD, because I was always like, PTSD is so overdiagnosed. It's a farce
Yeah.
and all this stuff. Like, because
Yeah.
everybody's got PTSD. I mean, you have this whole group that will claim PTSD, and some have it, some don't. So how have you experienced any type of traumatic stress from your work in your
God, yeah.
career? Yeah.
Man, yeah, like I was 19 and saw my first IED go off 20 minutes after we crossed the border of Kuwait to Iraq. Like I was definitely thrown into the lion's den. And I can honestly say that the things I've seen in 911 have bothered me far more than anything I saw in war. And kids are the reason. What you just said, kids are the reason. And an enemy combatant or something like that is one thing. I was in Iraq when Muqtada al-Sadr was putting car bombs in markets to stir up civil unrest. Basically, he'd bomb his own people and say, this would never happen if the Americans would just leave. And he would do it just to stir up a anti-American sentiment. But, kids go to the market too. And so some of the kids I saw that were sick and stuff that are and hurt, that bothered me in war, but I've just seen more of them here. I came in 911 in 2010, 2011, and I've been an actual paramedic 13 years. So you see a lot of kids in that time frame, and that stuff definitely bothered me. Matter of fact, that was one of the reasons I made that response video to that crazy lady in Michigan who was just nonchalantly talking about drowning kids, and she's supposed to be an EMT. And it's like, tell me you're messed up without telling me you're messed up. So it's definitely. It's been a ton of it, a lot of things that were traumatic and do bother me and always will. And, there's a lot to unpack there, if you want to talk about that.
Did you deal with so I was always met with this, I don't know if I'd call it atmosphere or pushback from senior leadership and senior medics that were of the mindset, you just push forward. You're fine. You shouldn't feel this way. Like I got a lot of that. and maybe it was different for you, but at my agencies that I worked at, there was a lot of like 50 and even 60-year-old paramedics that have been doing it for 20, 30 years. And they were always, if I had a problem with something, it was always, you're fine, suck it up, like move on. And we talk about this almost every episode. And I think this will be kind of the running theme that we've kind of lived in this atmosphere of you're fine, get over it.
It's a good thing to explore, PTSD. Yeah, I've had people tell me that. I've heard what feels like all the excuses or things under the sun. Got to get back on the horse and yada yada. For me, I have a strange way of dealing with these things insofar as other people don't. So when something bothers me, I dwell on it until it doesn't. I sort of callous myself to it. Things only hurt for so long, so to speak. And of course, there's things that will always bother you, but I don't look for a reason or find a way to make peace or look for inspiration or any of that. I deal with it. I continually focus on it. I don't drive it from my mind. I understand, yes, this happened. It may very well happen again. I, make sure that I'm understanding that this is the field I have chosen and that I choose it every day. And I can, at any time I want, I can choose not to choose it and I can walk away. If it starts to take more out of me than I take out of it, I can walk away. And that gives me my control, my power, my authority and dominion over my own life. And that helps me deal with the things that I see where I just kind of remind myself like I am in fact in charge. And I can walk away. And also, I'm sort of, I heard somebody describe it as reclaiming your power. And like to a certain extent, I kind of understand that. But I remind myself like I am in fact stronger than this. This is not the worst thing, or maybe it is the worst thing, but it may not be the worst thing I'll ever see or deal with. And at the end of the day, there's a little mantra that I'd say to myself, and it's very simple. It's almost cliche, but it's I will not be defeated. You may kick my ass today, but you will have to do it every single day. And you're going to want a banana and a Gatorade when it's over, right? So you're going to be cramping. You're going to have a hammy, so, and when the demons come, if they want to fight about it, we can fight them. We can do it every day, but I will not be defeated. And I've done it the wrong way. I've, buried myself in a bottle and, I'm not going to do that anymore, but if you want to fight about it, we can fight about it, Mr. Demon or whatever. And if the thought comes to me, and it hits that much harder because now I have a family, right? And I'll tell you guys a good story about that because it's one that still bothers me, but we can fight about it every day. If that demon wants to pop in my head, being that I have ADHD, I know I can't control the random thoughts. And so if they want to pop in, I don't drive them. I don't ignore them. I don't shy from that stimulus. I'm very confrontational with myself. And that has really helped me gain a lot of power and dominion over it that no therapist can give me, no medicine can give me that. And I have good days and bad days like everybody else. But one of the ones that hit me probably the hardest, this is a good story, actually, like it makes me sound cooler than I am. I was training a new medic. So at this point, I'm an FTO. In rural North Carolina, in a wonderful county. I had a huge scope of practice. Every cath lab is an hour and a half in every direction. The burn center's 2.5 hours away. It takes an hour to get a chopper some days. Like BFE with a great medical director and simple enough 35-mile-an-hour zone. There's a Ford Focus, 3 kids in the back. 11 months, 2 years and 7, I think it was. And T-boned by a Ram 2500 towing a low boy with a backhoe on it. So extreme amount of energy. Yeah. Car spins, it knocks a railroad box off the foundation. You know how those things are anchored in. The 3 children in the back were unrestrained. There were no car seats of any kind. 18-month-old is ejected from the vehicle, ran over by the same vehicle. She's bleeding into her spine and doing the turtle. And so she's vomiting, can't clear her own airway and all that. And I first on scene, me and a brand new paramedic who's trying to clear. And this is we only had 8 trucks in the whole county. Every district is 20, 25 minutes from each other. So of course, first thing I'm on the radio, like I need bodies, I need hands. And when I go to clear this kid's air, mom's running around the scene with a broken pelvis, checking on her kids. When I go to clear this kid's airway, she's got 2 teeth and then in the exact same place as my daughter's 2 teeth, my baby daughter. And I mean, it felt like an eternity. It couldn't have been more than a quarter of a second. I paused. I mean, literally, it couldn't have been. But it was almost like the movies where time stops. And I had the simplest thought. No grandiose realization. I said, nope. Just like that. I said it out loud. I'm sure nobody knew what I was talking about, but it was, no, I'm not going to capitulate to this. So I'm started working. I'm working on the kids. I'm triaging. letting dispatch know I'm going to need air assets. I need them at the hospital. Let the hospital know we are coming in hot with 3 sick kids, one coded on the way. We got her back on under the awning, and this poor little baby is just torn all up. She's got broken femurs and head injuries, spine injuries. She's bleeding. It was just terrible to see this mangled baby that was reminding me very much of Isabella, who's at home waiting for daddy to come home. And then when we get there, the weather turns bad. And that's something that I can tell you about North Carolina. Like, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. It's all you got to wait 5 minutes. It'll change. And so it went from a beautiful sunny day to absolute just murder and thunderstorms. And so we get the call, they're not going to fly. They got to get to pediatric neuro, but there was no way in hell we were going to drive them an hour and a half to pediatric neuro with what we had to work with. I mean, I needed mannitol. I needed things to get this kid's intracranial pressure down. I needed to be able to put her in a drug-induced coma, which in this county at that time we couldn't do. There had been some recent problems with RSI and all that. And so we're at the hospital and no air assets will fly, but there was this trump card we had we could pull. We could call the Marines at Cherry Point Naval Air Station. They had a chopper. It was a Chinook they called Pedro, and they would send it when you were in a bind for patients when the weather was bad. They send you like a 20-year-old Navy corpsman with no pediatric experience, so the medics got to ride with them. And it was, well, if we call Pedro, who will go? I mean, I never missed a beat. I'll go. You're going to fly in this. And I was like, if you won't fly with the Marines, you shouldn't fly at all. Like, you could trust them. They're pretty good. I know them. I know a few. And so they called in this other guy from home to try to keep some trucks in service, because this just decimated our manpower in the county. And he was like, yeah, I'll come in. So he comes in. So he and we jump on this chopper, and this same kid I'm telling you about's on propofol. We got both of her sisters in there now. Everybody's RSI, drugs hanging to reduce the intracranial pressure. I jump on with the Navy corpsman, and I'm like, I need a harness because I know I'm getting ready to get thrown around. So I'm hooking to the floor and not adjusting propofol drips because we can't do that in North Carolina. So I'm cocktailing fentanyl on top of this. And I'm just so emotionally invested in this kid because she's converted into my daughter now. Like, mentally, that is Isabella sitting there. Those 2 teeth were all it took. And we flew it, in that thunderstorm, getting thrown around. And it was about a 30-minute flight, if that tells you how far this was. And finally, man, we get them on the ground. We get picked up. We get back to the station, soaking wet from sweat and rain, exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally. And thank God, it's almost the end of the shift by the time this is all said and done. And so I drive 35 minutes home, sneak in because it's Sunday. You know what I mean? So I don't want to wake up the baby. And I go and I look at her, and I pick her up and bring her into the living room because I just want to hold her. I just want to hold my daughter, and I want to know she's okay. That's all I want. And I just started to cry. And I don't cry. Not like, oh, I'm a big man, I don't cry. I mean, like, it takes a lot. It just, I've seen enough, done enough. It takes a lot. And I started freaking bawling, uncontrollable, like making noise. And so, of course, that wakes up Mrs. ShadeTree, and God bless her, man. This is so stupid in retrospect. She wakes up out of a dead sleep and walks into the living room to find her husband holding her baby, crying like a maniac. What would you have thought?
The worst.
Yeah. So now she's freaking out, and I'm like, no, everything's okay. So now Bella's awake. Like, what the hell? Because she's, 16 months, 17 months, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's funny on the back end of it, but in that call, this poor kid, she will live with me forever. That will never, ever not hurt to see what happened to her, what she went through. Found out later that she had just a litany of neurological problems and seizures, but took about a year, made a full recovery. She was so young, and the neurons are very plastic. Yep. Made a full recovery. I mean, I'm sure she's going to have some arthritis she can't explain, but considering that it happened at that age, she did really well in the long term. I followed up on her as much as we could, and honestly through our system. And that was a kid that didn't even die, but that eats me alive just to even think about it. And I use this story and illustrate it for a reason, because I can't take any solace in the cool things that I did or the way I put myself out there or the risks that I took. I can't find any solace in that, even though I did the right thing. And it makes for a cool story where I sound like a hometown hero if I tell it the right way and all that kind of stuff. But it's still, even though the kid made a full recovery, even though I did everything right, there were no medical errors, I even volunteered for hazardous duty, it still eats me alive that happened to that kid at all, that I had to deal with that there's just this emotional gouge from where it reminded me of my daughter so much. And there were hours on end I was in this zone. And that's why I tell this story, because I want people to understand that that's okay. It's okay if it still bothers you and they made a full recovery. It's okay if you did everything right and it still bothers you. It's all right, but don't run from it. Don't climb in a bottle. Don't let it dominate you. Just focus on it until it just loses its power over you, and it'll never be completely okay. It's okay that it bothers you. Matter of fact, if it didn't, I'd worry about you. Just never give in completely. Don't let it dominate you. And then I could tell you 100 other stories where things didn't turn out well, you know, but for whatever reason, that one has always hit me the hardest. And I like to use that example to let people know that it's okay that what bothers you doesn't live up to somebody else's standard. Because that's a lot of the guys that'll talk to me and confide in me. That's what they tell me. Well, I haven't seen anything like so-and-so had, or I haven't seen anything as bad as you've seen. It's like, it doesn't matter. That's not the point. Isn't how objectively bad it was to the world. It's like, what did it do to you? Because we're trying to fix you. We're trying to help you.
Yeah, Sophie actually alluded to this very point when we were talking to her, that it's okay to be not okay, but it's also okay to be okay.
Yeah,
Anybody's mental response is perfectly fine and theirs to have.
Yep.
And I think, so what's the why? I mean, what's the why behind why we hide from this so much? Is it the stigma? Is it because we face a silent battle all the time? And that's part of the reason that we named the podcast what we did, because we're always fighting this silent war. Why do we choose to suffer? What is the why behind why we choose to keep bottled up?
I think a lot of it is because you can't fix it, right? If there was a tried and true method that you could just make this go away, when you break a bone, you put a couple screws in it, you put it back together, eventually it gets better, and maybe you got some aches and pains when it rains. But there is no fix to this. It can hurt incredibly bad just because you're having a bad day from other things that are totally unrelated.
Lower threshold.
Yeah. And so because there's no permanent fix to psychological trauma, and there's really not, there's no permanent fix. Sometimes it's just easier to not deal with it, you know, and there's, I think, you know, a need to maintain appearances. You got to be operational. You got to be on the clock. You know, you need the overtime to live, but also you got to have your head in the game. You can't be focusing on yesteryear's patient and mess up today's. And so I think a lot of it, it may sound a little bit petty, but sometimes you just have to look at it and you think, you know, this is just a bunch of shit I just can't deal with right now. Yeah. I'm busy. And that's wild. And yet that's exactly what we do every day. And then also we have a lot of really good lip service for getting help and CISD briefings and CISMs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But you know, like that's what a lot of that shit is. It's lip service. People are going to talk about you. They're going to say, yeah, that guy's a basket case or whatever. And I mean, like, to a certain extent, you've got to operate at the highest level you can and push through when you can, so that you are reliable, so that you are the person somebody can call for help if they need a second in unit. But also you can't be breaking down every third shift either. And I think a lot of us are just terrified that it's going to turn into that if we give in, or if we capitulate, or if we've never fully unpacked what bothers us about an issue. I think a lot of us are afraid that, like, if we open Pandora's box, right? You know,
you can't close it.
That's right. You can't get it back in. And here's the next thing. And it's something we have to work on, like, as a field. But most of us, because of the type of person we are, because of the type of work that we do and the friends that we have, and I love them all, we are rarely in a good place to say, you know what? I think I can take a hit to my mental health today by focusing on something. The to-do list is full in terms of Greg's crazy, right? Like, I got to pencil you in, you know? So, yeah, you know, I some days, and I'm not advocating for this, some days it's just easier to turn on a song and try to get it off your mind, you know, or, you know, have a drink or go see a friend or go fishing or whatever. But in the end, you know, you're going to pay those late fees for not paying that bill on time. So we have to find, I think, you know, just like spitballing, I think there should be almost like a counseling system. When you're in a service, you have quarterly and monthly counseling where you sit down with your leaders, and they just, you know, piece of paper, it's a document, and you talk about how you've been doing, what's expected of you, what you want to work on, how do you feel, what do you want to do, what are your goals, and, you know, is anything bothering you, what's going on? And it's like a constant series of check-ins that are documented with your chain of command. And I'd love to see us adopt something like that, because you know what blame sharing is, I'm sure, right? Everybody does. It's so easy to throw a poster on a wall from a company that we've contracted and we paid them to say, hey, here, go get you everything from the neck up. They'll fix you, go. Because then we can say, well, they were given resources and they didn't use them. Because that's what I want to do. I want to walk away from these guys I know so well that I've, we've had to check each other for ticks after we had to go pull some guy out of some crazy place or whatever, and talk to a stranger who knows nothing about me, who wasn't there, who's with some giant contracted company who doesn't get paid enough to pretend to care. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go do.
Kevin have talked about this so many times, about how I told him, I said, I have said this to you, and he knows it.
I think
He's
I
like, why
found your
don't you ever
spirit
go to
animal.
I think we did too, because I swear to God, dude, I told him on the phone one day, and it's really, I really started struggling and realizing I had PTSD after a really bad peds abuse call a couple months ago.
Those are so
And
hard.
We have a
they're
lot of those.
hard.
We have a
We
lot
do
of
have a
those
lot, and for some
because we're an
reason,
all ped service. So I mean, we have a lot of
Hey,
abuse.
kudos. That is gangster. If you work with kids, that is gangster.
I always say it's like one of the biggest things you can always maintain compassion for
Yeah,
children,
yeah.
because they're so
You won't
innocent and
lose
they
it.
don't ask for anything that happens to them. So you can always show up with compassion to a child, or at least I
Yes,
can. I know a lot of us can, but it's also like the biggest area of hurt, because the things that happen to them they didn't ask for.
that's the
And there's a lot
exchange.
of evil in the world, you know. And so I had actually texted Kevin from the gym a couple of months ago after that call, and I said, hey, I know that we talked about PTSD, and I know we talked about mental health. And I guess I reached out to him because he was actually trying to get something going for our service, like for peers, and that kind of facilitated a conversation. And come to find out, between us, we have a lot of commonalities between childhood abandonment, not the greatest parenting, and now we've worked ourselves here. But he asked me, like, why do you not want to go to counseling? And I said, Kevin, a lot of it is like, when I walk in that door, nobody knows anything about me. They don't know that I'm a mom. They don't know the hell I've been through. They don't know anything but what I lead to tell them. Like, they don't know the funny Kim, they don't know the sensitive Kim, they don't know the amazing provider that I am, the friend, the all the good things that I am. And I would rather talk to somebody like Kevin that I've known for 10 years, and he's seen me at like the peak and at my best, or like in the pits of hell, but he's seen that entire gamut of me. He knows
Yeah.
me, and the other people don't. It's like, that's a no from me, dog. So that's why we're here. That's a lot of reason why we're here.
Please let me piggyback on this. So, went to war at 19, came back from that, a little messed up, made it worse, right? Why? Because that's what I do. I will complicate my own problems. I'm really good at that, right? And so I had hit a point, man, I was all boogered up. I mean, everything from the neck up was broken. I'm talking bag of spare parts, and I just couldn't figure it out. But the one thing I knew was I did not have 10 minutes a day where I felt good in my own skin. I was drinking. I was actually working for the Department of Defense at the time. So like, I'm keeping up appearances because I need to, because what a hell of an opportunity for a young kid to be, 20, 22, 23, working for the DOD. And so I'm keeping up appearances. I'm not drinking at work, but like I'm getting blasted every day when I get off. And of course I'm 22, 23. So I can do that, and I do the counseling. I went to the VA. I took the drugs. I don't recommend that even for a minute. I'm not poo-pooing the fine physicians and their education. And I feel like if they had been allowed to use their education, I probably would have had a better outcome. But I didn't get a tailored starter pack or a tailored prescription of medication to help me. I got the PTSD starter pack. The VA gave the same 3 damn things to everybody, and it was aimed at your behavior, not how you feel. Let's just keep this guy from becoming Timothy McVeigh and out of the papers, because this war is not popular. And so I tried it. I did it 30 days. I gave them their empty bottles back, and I was like, no more. I can't. At the end of the day, what fixed me, what put me on the right path, I had an uncle that went to Vietnam with 1st Cavalry, and I drank beer with him. I sat down and talked to him, and we just talked, and we just shot the shit, and we didn't get real deep into everything. We didn't need to, because he had lived what I had lived, probably worse on his end, because they were very unappreciated when they came back. But he understood the environment, an enemy that's, doesn't like to dress like an enemy, and just all the different things like that swim in your head while you're over there. Is today that they're going to get me? Is something going to happen? Is a mortar going to fall? Because they fall 3-4 times a day. So that just over time, it eats you up. And at the end of the day, sitting down and talking to my friends, bullshitting around, even when that's not like, I don't show up and say, hey, I'm in a bad way, I need to talk to you. No, just cooking out together. And then, maybe you have a few too many drinks after and the conversations get deep. Right.
Or people lose their clothes.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, yeah, but that has done more for my mental health than anything. And I think one of the reasons that as a business, as a field, we are spiraling, we have lost our sense of community. We don't cook together anymore. We don't hang out anymore. We don't go on vacation together anymore. We don't keep the same partner for years anymore. We are completely and utterly fragmented community compared to what we used to be. Every time you turn around, it's a new ship bid. You got a new partner. You have no sense of continuity from one person to the next. You're constantly reintroducing yourself and re-explaining yourself and stuff like this. And we just don't have the support network that used to be built into us because the only people who understand what we do is us.
That's right.
And now what we have is a group of strangers competing with each other. And I think that's one reason, especially over the past 10 years or so, that we've absolutely seen the mental health in our field completely spiral. And I think it's one of the reasons we don't see it doing this in the fire service. The fire service has maintained their sense of community much better. But EMS, like I wrote a whole book about it. We're notorious for eating our young, tearing each other down and all that. But I think it all stems from our loss of community. We lost ourselves. We forgot we were we at some point. If we could get that back, I think so much would fix itself, both in us individuals and in our field. But that's just my 2 pennies.
And I think we lost some of that camaraderie that we used to have. I think it used to be up here, and now we've kind of gone down. And
Yeah.
it is part of community, but camaraderie is something totally different where you work with that same group of folks all the time. And that's, my 5 or 6 guys that I worked with in Little Greenwood, Mississippi, those are my homies, man.
Yeah.
Like we were ride or dies. We'd do anything for each other. And you've kind of lost that. You don't have people getting into it for the camaraderie. And that was one of the pulls for me, was like, this is a place of community, of camaraderie, of fun. Like it was fun to be at work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you're right. EMS has lost a good bit of that.
Yeah. And, when I first worked for, I almost shout them out, a service called Duplin County EMS, they were the ones who gave me my start in Duplin County, North Carolina. They said, hey, you know what? You've done some transport, you've done some military, but you seem like a good egg. We're going to give you a chance. I worked there 10 years, first 10 years of my EMS career. It was short order, because I kind of knew some people who knew some people. So we didn't feel like strangers. You know how the South is, like, who's your mama and them, So I hit it off with several guys, and not the least of which was a guy named Mike Johnson, who is still a great friend of mine to this day. Guys like him and Kevin, just to name a few, like Kevin Gibbons and just guys that we would go to each other's houses. We would watch each other's kids. We still try to get together and eat once a year if we can, even though I'm globetrotting and doing all this other stuff, we still try to maintain our sense of community. But man, I can tell you, like, all these guys I'm talking to now, they don't have any good stories of when they hung out with their buddy and when they looked out for each other and, whether at work or not at work or whatever. I mean, Mike and I almost died on the Appalachian Trail in bad weather. And why were we there? Because we were homies from work and we were tight and we had done some shit. Mike was my supervisor that day with the sick kid and the helicopters and stuff. I eventually became Mike's assistant supervisor. So I wanted to come to work. Mike and I used to see who could get there first. We wanted to be there and do the best job that we could. And it was 100%, it was a self-propelled rocket to the best that we could be. And it was built on friendly competition and camaraderie and a full understanding of how important our mission was to the community, right? And how important it was to live that example. And that ended up, we would not have considered letting a Christmas pass that we didn't all get together, sometime around Christmas. And I'm not talking about a company Christmas party. I'm talking about, hey, let's cook at my house, man. Christmas is coming up, like we wouldn't have even entertained the idea of forgetting the other guy's birthday. We were tight, and I haven't seen that anywhere in years and years, except as close as I've seen it is at the firehouse. And if they can maintain that, they'll avoid a lot of the heartache that our field's going through right now, because we're seeing the tangible consequences of that lost community. We're seeing the suicide. We're seeing the people that crash out, the substance abuse, walking away from the field, the divorce. We're seeing it, and it's, community handles what we can't, and we don't have community anymore. It's gone.
I also think that, and this is kind of segueing into the very last section where we talk about kindness, but I think one of the things you find with, I'm not going to say older guys, because I don't like to describe myself as old, but yeah, we'll say EMS veterans. We've done 4 episodes so far, and one of the things that has kind of been, every guest has said the same thing, that an EMS Avenger was one of the ones that, now he's made a shirt. I had to go order it. But saving life starts with kindness. And you see the EMS veterans who really embrace that a little bit more than some of the new kids that are coming in. And I say kids loosely, nobody get offended.
Yeah.
Just the younger generation of EMS doesn't embrace that kindness, kind of like we have. So Kim, you can talk about kindness a little bit. I think you're better suited for this. She's the kindest heart that I think I've ever met, certainly over me. I get called an asshole at least 3 times a week. So, but I embrace that as well. So it's okay.
It'd be like that sometimes.
It's one of those things. You just I always say be the kindness you want to see in the world. And I think that just from my past and not having a good family support system, my brothers and sisters at work have been my family, and struggling with, PTSD and mental health for a long time, even before this job, just from childhood trauma and lack of support. I know how important it is. You don't know what your colleagues are struggling with. You don't know what the lady in the car next to you, she could be hanging by a thread, and your dumbass comment and your ignorance could be the comment that sends her over the edge. And I try to keep that in mind, because I know sometimes I'm hanging by that thread, and I want that kindness, and just sometimes that smile or a compliment or just saying something positive to somebody else could make or break their day, or be the motivation to keep them going. Or you could affect their life negatively, and you could be the comment that takes them out.
That's right.
That's pretty profound effect. Like, if you think about it, I try to remind myself that we're all in different walks of life, and we all have different thresholds. There's some days I can tolerate a lot of shit, but when my cup is full, I can't.
Right.
I can't. And you never know where somebody is, and their cup being full or empty. And I think if we just keep that in mind and find a reason to be kind, it costs nothing, $0 to be a kind individual.
Yeah. Well, that's the one place I've allowed ShadeTree Cardiology to go to my head, is the potential impact I might have on somebody when I speak to them or about them, so that I understand that if that person's cup is full, or if they're teetering on the edge, if I'm overly harsh or sharp with the criticism, or if I say something uncalled for, that my word might carry great weight in their mind, and that might do a lot of damage to them. So, which I try. I was a super, super harsh person when I was younger. It was the way that I was raised, and it sort of in the beginning, I didn't really understand much differently. Just that was the way that my mother was a very kind and compassionate person. My father was a very tough guy, and his criticisms cut to the bone, and that was his goal always, always. And so it was how I communicated. I had to unlearn that. Mrs. ShadeTree is absolutely who saved me from staying who I was and becoming worse and turning me into a better person. These days, even at the convenience store, I still, if I ask you for anything, I say pretty please. Like in the middle of a cardiac arrest, I'll go, hey, can I have that bougie pretty please? Like, I still do that, which is funny, like, because it comes out of this, almost a giant compared to most people. I make most people feel tiny, but it sort of conveys just kindness out of nowhere and for no reason, in a simple exchange, like, can I buy these monsters type of thing. And it injects it into the world, and it's desperately needed everywhere you put it. Like, if it's a medicine, there's certainly not been enough to go around for a long time. And we definitely need to be kind to our patients at just as a matter of professionalism, but also we need to be kinder to each other. I did the Nebraska EMS Association's conference, and we were kind of picking spots on this one thing I was going to teach, and I had called it eating our own, was how eating our young, which turned into eating our own. And eventually that evolved into the book We're Doing It Wrong, which is sort of a collection on the subject that we're talking about, like the way that we treat each other, and the way that we are unkind to each other, and the way we turn on each other, and the loss of community. But I caught these guys on the last day of the conference. It's that morning session. The conference is officially over at like 11 a.m. So everybody's kind of exhausted and they're partied out and hungover. And like psychologically, I really had their attention. You know, they were in a place to receive this instead of being the tough guy, you know. And that class went over so well. I got so much feedback about it from so many people about, you know what, you're right. Like I haven't thought about it, but the way we're doing our interns at X service, I'm the head of the training. I'm going to redo the whole, we're expecting too much. We're too hard on these guys. We're not being understanding and compassionate to these people who are seeing this for the first time, that are seeing the abused child for the first time, you know, or whatever. And we really, the way we treat each other, like it's okay to expect a modicum of excellence from each other. Right. And I think like in the moment, if you and I are working together and let's say it's a bad call, bad kid, whatever, and I see you start sliding off the rails, I think it's okay for me to go, hey, back here with me. I need you now, you know, and then after we can work on it. Right. But it's that after and that before really when we're not on good terms, because frankly, like as a field, we're not nice to each other anymore. We run each other in the ground behind each other's back. Every paramedic is the best paramedic. Just ask them, you know. Well, I'll tell you what I'd have done if I was on that call. I mean, how many times have you heard this and a million things just like it? Like from an outsider looking in, they would swear we hated each other. You know, now there was a time they'd have thought that by the way that we joked, right? But we're not joking anymore. We hate each other by and large as a field, you know, and it shows. It really shows. And I've had the opportunity to kind of go around a bunch of different services here lately. I'm in well, I never say who I work for. It's not even on LinkedIn anymore because I got weirdos that want to cancel people, but I'm with the special operations division of a company, and we will do FEMA deployments and things like that, of course, but we will also fill the gaps in your schedule, right? So if you're 40 medics short, you know, we're licensed, all of us are licensed in a couple of different states, and we'll give guys a plane ticket, throw them a protocol book and a uniform, and they can handle it, you know, and they only need the protocol book to make sure they don't get anybody in trouble, you know. And so you get a chance to see multiple agencies and areas and partners, and it's endemic. Like thousands of miles away, the same things are happening. We're not kind to each other. It's bleeding out into us not being kind to our patients, right? We're not kind to the community. I think we are on the precipice of losing our status as the community servants that people once trusted to have their best interest in mind. And then when you see cases in the news, like what was this most recent one? I think it's in Denver, and then things like Elijah McClain and all that. We're going to have to act soon to salvage a lot of this. And a lot of it's going to be winning this war you're talking about. We have to win the war with ourselves, and then we have to win the war between ourselves, right? And the biggest, if I could write 2 prescriptions, it would be a prescription for community. Right. We got to bring that back. And then 2, what Kim said, we have got to be nice to each other. We have got to stop saying things about each other behind each other's back, pointing out each other's bad qualities. You know, I know a guy who can intubate with a 9-0 in an 80-pound grandma going emergency traffic upside down, but that is not the first thing anybody will tell you about him. You know what I mean? The first thing they'll tell you about him is one of his bad habits. We used to focus on the good in people, and as long as they weren't like cantankerous, like some people have the personality of a cactus, right? Like God bless them. You just can't deal with them. But a lot of people, we all have shortcomings, you know. Sure. I talk too much. There's mine. Well, that's one of them. I got a whole bag of them. They came free, you know, but we focus too much on the bad parts of each other and none on the good parts of each other. It's no wonder we're crumbling in a lot of ways.
I even tell my daughters that. I said, you can find good in every person. And I
Yes.
know Kevin was touching off of social media, and I think that's one bad thing that I've found about social media is all the comparison. Like, and I don't know if you're religious or Kevin and I are both spiritual people,
I'm working
but
on
like
it.
we're
Same.
spiritual people.
It's
But
hard, you know.
I would say like each of us were put here for a reason. We have a path. We're put on a path. And that don't look the same for everybody. A lot of days wish when I was younger, I'm like, man, I wish I was born into a awesome family with a mom and a dad, not a divorce
Yeah.
household.
Yeah.
I wish that my siblings were awesome and we never fought. I wish we had money and I could do like all this stuff and have the clothes that everybody else had. But you know
Yeah.
what? Now sitting here at my age, I wouldn't change a damn thing because I'm me and I'm still humble. We just bought this big beautiful house 2 weeks ago and I can't even believe that I'm living in it
Sure
because
did.
I
Yeah.
just I never
Awesome.
saw that for
That's
myself.
awesome.
I'm proud and I'm happy that I have that atmosphere for my kids and I've busted my ass for it for years and my girls even cried like, "Mom, you did that." And I looked at them, I said, "You know what? Now that we're sitting here in this house," I said, "I want to tell you something. It doesn't mean shit. At the end of the day, it doesn't mean shit. This house isn't going with me. I've spent and invested a lot of time." And I said, and at my age now, I've just learned what matters and what don't.
Right.
And what matters, like, I can't get time back. I can't. I said, "You guys are almost grown and about to leave the house in the next 3 years." I said, and all this time I've spent working all these jobs, paying off debt, saving money. And I said, and here we are. We finally did it. We moved into this dream house that I always wanted to give you because I never had it growing up. I said, maybe instead of me focusing on what was important to me and my goals, maybe I should have stopped for a minute and asked you what's important. And my daughters and I have had a lot of very enlightening conversations lately. I've been very vulnerable and I'm not used to being that way with
It's
them,
hard,
but
isn't it? It's
it
hard.
is. And I wanted to tell them the truth about the childhood trauma and the things that I've went through because for a long time I kind of kept them away from that and now I kind of bring them into that and into me a lot more than I ever have. And we sat and had this conversation the other day, my daughter and I, and we both cried and that's never happened
That's,
ever,
that's hard,
ever.
man. It's my daughter's 11, but she is her father in every way. She is thinking and talking on these levels so much deeper than an 11-year-old. The reason I'm out here is for a house, actually. I'll give you a little background. You got to have some setup for any of this to make any sense. In December, I got off the ship, was still working offshore. My brother died like 5 days after I got home. My dad died 6 days later, and they both died of cirrhosis. Unfortunately, my dad was a drinker, and I, tried and tried and tried, couldn't get him to listen. My brother was his neighbor. And at one time I was my dad's neighbor. We had bought, if you kind of imagine like Monopoly, there's 3 properties, right? And so when I came back from Iraq, I bought this property. My dad bought this property. My brother bought this property. And so my brother and I, we agreed that we would never sell our property so mom and dad wouldn't have bad neighbors. It's not a lot of property. It's on a strip where they build houses on the side of the road. And so you kind of imagine, right here, I have, my property, which we lived on for a little while, but I moved away because I had to get away from my father. And, it's a very traumatic upbringing, and things he said, the beatings and so on. Like, I don't have to go deep into it, but it wasn't a good situation. And I was the guy who was going to push back. When you figure out that, like, when you figure out the beating's coming anyway, no matter what, because they don't come from a place of good order and discipline, they come from a place of temper tantrums, and you're going to catch it. You start to say, well, I'm going to choose why I get it, right? You push back in the way that you can. And I don't know how much of it I would or wouldn't change, talking about what you said. I know it made me very tough. I know damn well I'll never repeat it. And it's a conversation my wife and I recently had about how much I've grown from when she met me to how I am now. I don't raise my hands to my children. I absolutely do not tear them down or make them feel worthless. There's lots of encouragement in our home, which we never got, and
Yeah.
that is the home that we want to build. But also, for 17 years, I promised Miss Carr, I'm going to build you a house. And I was going to do it after med school. But, when you're holding the letter in your hand and you're thinking about packing things up and how you're going to do it, it hit me. I'd rather be a dad than a doctor. I would rather be here for this little girl to guide her and be her buddy. My little girl comes to me when she wants to tell a little boy she likes him, which is hard. It's hard for daddy to swallow, but
Oh
like
yeah.
it's coming. I mean, you can fight it all you want. That's one thing I've learned in this life. Like, swimming against the current will at least make you tired enough you can sleep, but you're better off to just float, and it's been hard because I am exchanging time. I'm exchanging time with them now. It's what I do is decently lucrative, insofar as I can work all I want. I can make a lot of overtime, and I'll be able to build this house and absolutely assassinate this mortgage within just 3 or so years, to where if I die, they will own it. They'll have it forever. But once that's over, the the past 3 years in terms of like offshore and all that have really shown me what's important. And I can tell you that it's been a double-edged sword. It's been hard to be gone. I can't say I'm going to go home and stay home forever and not travel. And I'll tell you why. And it's why I kind of wanted to talk about this. When I work 911, it's hard to make decent money working 911. You got to work a lot. But you're always getting called in, or you're getting ready for the next job. You're shining your boots, which I do, or getting your uniform together or whatever. I learned that proximity doesn't equal presence. I was in that home with them and we were sleeping in the same bed, but I may as well have been 1,000 miles away a lot of days because I wasn't there. I wasn't emotionally available. I was focused on the mission. I'm dialed into the mission. Versus when I went offshore on my very first hitch, I was a basket case because I had never been away from them. My wife and I, were married the last time I went to Iraq, but we had no children. It's a whole different dynamic, when you got a family. And so I'm on this hitch on an oil rig and I'm far away and I'm thinking, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm talking to one of the contractors and, they have this thing they call the first day blues. So he's like, you got the first day blues, which is when you first come out on hitch, you first leave your family. It never gets any easier. It always sucks. And I said, yeah, man, I don't know if this is for me. Like I've never been away from them. He said, when you get home, you're going to find out this job is for you because you've never had quality time like you're about to have. He said, nobody's going to call you in because it's too hard to get you to work. You got to get on an airplane, stay in a hotel. Nobody's going to call you in. And if they do, it's going to be worth it to go because it's going to come with enough money that's going to do something big for them. And that's exactly what happened. I hit the beach, is what we call it, with several $1,000s I didn't have when I left, and then took my family up to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and took my wife to Amish country, a place she had always wanted to go. I had never been able to afford to take her. We did Christmas at Hershey Park. We bought Christmas presents, and I still had money when I had to go back. And I had 2 solid weeks of absolute quality time. I took kiddo to school. I picked her up. We went on the trip. Dinner was on the table when my wife got home. Laundry's done and folded. Yard is cut. Everything's managed, and I'm there, and I am fully available to everything that they need. And that completely changed my idea of the time that we exchange or that we lose. And I can honestly say now, as a travel medic, 3,000 miles away from my family, I get more quality time now than I had before, or at least I did before we started Operation Build House, because I'm working more now than I'm home now. But right now I'm paying, surveyors to kind of reapportion, get some lines drawn a right way, and add some infrastructure to my land that's going to allow me to build the house that Miss Carr wants, with the guest room and the garage, so she doesn't get rained on when we're not building a mansion by any means. We just want to have a nice little place that's ours that we can pay off. And so, of course, that takes a lot of cash to make that happen. So I'm working more now. But when I was running at 50-50, whether it was when I was in drilling, I was doing 21 days on, 21 days off or whatever, that quality time, the way to be available, I think everybody should explore that as part of this career at least once. Because I'm telling you, it's addictive to be able to say, let's go to Atlanta when I get home, or let's go to Tennessee when I get home. And we call it having my girls all to myself. So like we have each other all to ourselves. We go on a trip or get a hotel or whatever, and we just focus on each other. And it's quality time I never got working 911. So I just kind of wanted to add like a flip side of the coin there, Kim. Like we give up a lot for our family, and I think they understand why we do it. And a lot of times it's absolutely necessary, but also try to remember that when you're home with them, don't think about work. And if it's too hard, if you've got a local job or a job that worries you, or maybe you're in a leadership position where, it never stops, the phone never stops ringing, consider a job which maybe you travel, maybe you're gone a little bit, but in the end, they're more lucrative. And when you're home, you are all the way home. It's really a lot better than people think. Personally, I think is about as good as it's ever been whenever I'm running 50-50. When I'm gone a couple weeks and then I'm home a couple weeks, it's been great, because all the medical procedures or the benchmarks. I give you a good example. So Bella starts back to school in August. I'm going to come home shortly before that. We have kind of a family tradition where we go to this giant mall about an hour and a half from where we live. And I turn Bella loose with daddy's money. We get the Crocs and we get the book bag and all the stylish stuff so she can look like the cool kids, because I love to dote on my daughter. I really do. I will pick up shifts and work overtime just to give Bella stuff. And she never asks for much, honestly. She doesn't want much, but she's like any kid. She wants school clothes. And we always eat at the Cheesecake Factory. So we have our little tradition here. and they love it. So we have our little tradition where we do that. And then I'm going to be there all through the first week of school and then beyond, taking her, picking her up, helping her get into the scheme of things, doing her homework with her because daddy's the math guy, and getting all that worked out and getting them in that routine for, because it's a transition. I know we do it every year, but when your kids go back to school, it's a transition.
Yeah,
One
I've
that,
been staying up late for months.
oh yeah. It's one that I don't want my wife to make alone, but I like I pop in and I take care of everything and I get all that done. And then once we're nice and back and smooth, then I'll go back to work. And that's nice to have that flexibility. It's nice. It comes at the cost of not sleeping in the same bed every night. But if you work 911, you don't get to sleep in the same bed every night. If you work in medicine, you are not going to sleep in your own bed every night. I mean, if you get a chance to travel, I highly recommend it.
It wasn't until 6 months ago that I took a leadership position. And thankfully, when I took this leadership position, there was a lot of support in place. There's only 1 week a month that I have my phone ringing off the hook.
Right.
Leadership was the first time that I ever truly got to sleep in my bed every night with my family. I get that. I really do. Not maybe to the extent of having the 3 weeks uninterrupted off. I think I could put you and Kim in a room together and just listen to you two talk. Because, and these podcasts.
Pick her brain, yeah.
Yeah, these podcast episodes have really turned into therapy for us both. To close out, if you had to put all these threads together that we've talked about, everything that we've discussed, what's the one piece of advice you give to anybody who's listening about their mental health, about how they conduct themselves, all this stuff we've talked about? How do you roll it into one nice little sandwich?
Okay. I'd tell you that this is my mantra. I'm not all right, but I'm okay. Right. And so that's my status. That's where I try to stay. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that we say a lot that are almost cliche. It's okay to not be okay, which is true, right? It's true. But just remember that the standard we try to maintain is I'm not all right, but I'm okay. I'm making it. I'm getting there. There's a certain length of time a QRS can be. It can be anything within that, right? But it can't be too wide and can't be too narrow. And so just try to keep it between the parameters. And when you see something is becoming a problem, remember that it's always easier to solve the problems when they're smaller, but that takes early action. So if you're not sleeping, try to figure out why you're not sleeping. Don't just go buy melatonin. If you are snapping at your coworkers, sit down and focus. Get real honest with yourself. And if I could recommend one thing to somebody new coming into this field, it would be you need to have some time in the morning where you have no outside stimulus, because your demons come for you at night, a lot of times when you lay down to sleep, but you're honest with yourself in the morning. And so we like to pop that phone open and go straight to TikTok and get the distraction going, or Facebook or social media when we first wake up, especially guys, because we like to wake up and go do our business and then we can just scroll, right? So don't have any outside input or stimulus first thing in the morning, because you're going to be honest with yourself, and you're going to find a lot of your life's problems are easier to solve by just being alone with your thoughts first thing in the morning. If you don't do that, you are going to add some truth to that old axiom, is one of the scariest places a person can be is alone in a quiet room with their own thoughts.
Yeah.
These problems will pile up. So spend those few minutes every morning with no stimulus. Let your brain run, let it think, and it will tell you what's wrong. It will tell you why your back hurts. It will tell you why you wake up feeling like crap, and then rectify those things. Another big one is physical fitness. I know that people talk about this all the time. You do not have to be a triathlete. There is no reason for you to complete Spartan runs. I've never ran a marathon. Matter of fact, if you see me running, try to keep up, right? Something bad's coming, but have some physical thing that you do that is therapeutic to you. Not something you do because you have to. Do it because you enjoy it. That could be an elliptic. It could be a rowing machine. It could be weightlifting. It could be walking. It could be doing handstands, calisthenics. Have some physical thing that you do that you enjoy doing, because you do need to be physical. I think it was Plato that said a man must train his body lest his mind betray him. If you get that physical exertion every day of some kind, you don't have to sweat or be pouring sweat through your clothes, or if you get your body moving and get functional, for me, I like to do it in the morning. It sorts out a lot of our emotional issues and baggage. And what it really does is it puts a problem into focus. And, after an hour at a good gym where I have a good productive workout, of things I like to do, right? If I'm gonna pick something up and put it back down, I'm gonna do what I want to do. That's, and after that, I have so many problems that I walked in the gym thinking were huge that I actually, by the time I'm done, I'm thinking that this is what we call a self-licking ice cream cone. This is actually going to work itself out if I just don't say anything. So physical activity, time alone with your thoughts, and solve your problems when they're small, when you first see them. Do not ignore them. The last thing I would say is be really, and I mean excruciatingly, honest with yourself about whether a job or a position or whatever is taking more out of you than it is putting in. So if you become a supervisor and it's taking more out of you than it's putting in, let it go. If you're at a job that's super toxic and it's taking a ton out of you and it's affecting your home life, or if you get on with the fire service that has a really toxic mentality about patient care and they're making the patients prove to them that they're sick and they don't ever break the NARC seal and all that, get away from it. I don't care how prestigious it may seem. Hey, you got it on your resume. And there's no shame when you sit across. I'm a guy that jumps from contract to contract and does things. And so my employment history is like this. It's not because I couldn't get along with people, but I'll be honest. And why did you leave that position? It seemed like a great one. Well, they paid me more. They gave my family a better quality of life. I think prestige is neat, but like my self-worth is not tied to this. At the end of the day, it's what can I do for the Shady family? What can I give them? Will my daughter fight a war for her college money? Probably not. You know what I mean? And so it's okay to move jobs and leave jobs, and it's expected these days. So if you see you're in a toxic environment, get out. It's too easy to get out. And then, when you go to your next job interview, you can always just throw a nice professional sounding reason on it. Don't tell them that those guys are toxic AF. Say, look, I just feel like this is a better spot for me. I mean, stuff looks good on the resume and whatnot, but are you really happy? Can I go places? You can always find a reason that makes it sound good that you came and sat in that chair and talked to them about a job, but get the hell away from a toxic environment. Get away from it, because you're not going to fix it. If they wanted it fixed, they'd have fixed it. And there are places, hospitals, services, agencies, entire companies that they've embraced it and they don't want to let it go. So just get away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. So where can we find Shade Tree Cardiology? Tell us about where you are. Give us the shameless plug. I love the shameless plug.
The shameless plug. So probably TikTok is the easiest thing. Across all social medias, it's just Shade Tree Cardiology. You can, if you have serious questions, you can hit me at shadetreecardiology@gmail.com. Or if you want to send me EKGs, I love that. I love having case discussions. I might make a video out of it. You can buy the books I've authored on Amazon. So ECG Hero was a bestseller in critical care. It is great for we wrote it for the student who wanted to start in the very beginning and then go way beyond what the instruction would teach them, so that they were super solid in cardiology. So when it came time to take the final and the national, you had no fear. And the companion for that will be out soon. You can find that on Amazon. Also, if you really, in terms of what we talked about today, if you want to see a social take on EMS and really an analysis and some anecdotes about things that we could do better in terms of how we treat each other, I wrote a book called We're Doing It Wrong, Anecdotes for the EMS Practitioner. And each chapter is really just a story or its own subject or an essay about something really common socially in EMS that we could fix, or that we need to stop doing to each other, whether it's eating our young or not really paying attention to mental health like we should until it's too late, and things like that. But pretty much, man, if you just Google Shade Tree Cardiology, you can find me. And then right now I'm on the West Coast. So if you're on the West Coast, then right now, and I'm in San Jose, if you see me walking around, that's probably me. Come say, hey, I'll buy you a beer.
I love it. I hate we're not in San Jose.
Me too.
Come on down, man.
That sounds like a better place. All right. Well, we have enjoyed talking to you, Greg. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate everything that you do for the EMS community. We appreciate you being open, honest, transparent. We love that. That's what we're here for. And remember, those who are listening, you can catch us on all of your podcast applications that you get your podcast from. We're here. We're available. You can follow us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all those cool places. You can always shoot us an email if you need help with something or you need some resources. You can always reach us at asilentwarwithin@gmail.com. Kim, hit them with the slogan.
As usual, be safe, take care of your mind, and we'll talk soon.
You've been listening to A Silent War Within. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, you're not alone and your well-being matters. It's time to end this silent war.